I have to be honest. I knew. I knew the whole time. So, hi everyone. I'm Veronica Morgana. I haven't made a YouTube video in a very long time. That's because I've been doing my master's degree. And unfortunately, that takes up a lot of your time and energy, and mental health. So I have not made a YouTube video in a very long time. However, something has come to my attention today, that I can't let it sit. I can't let it go. And that is the fact that the trailer, the official full trailer for Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights has come out today, or yesterday, I think at the time of filming this. I knew since I made my original Wuthering Heights video, where in it I talk about how I watched every single filmed version of Wuthering Heights. I knew since I posted that video that that woman was going to be terrorizing us all and making an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. Because not very long after I posted that video, actually, the news came out. So I've known. And I am now breaking my silence because the film is here. Well, it's going to be here in 3 months from now. And the trailer, the full trailer is here. And the comment section of the trailer was just too concerning to me that I could not say anything. Like, I had to say something. And the thing is I also knew about the article that came out a couple months ago when they had their test screening in Dallas for the movie, and I did read that article. And I knew from the get-go, okay, that Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights was never going to be good. Do you want to know why? Well, a common critique that a lot of people have of Emerald Fennell, and that I agree with, is that she does not understand how to properly analyze and depict class dynamics. A lot of people had this critique with Saltburn. I think people even had this critique with Promising Young Woman as well, where like she just cannot for the life of her depict class dynamics properly. And I completely agree with that. And I knew that that was going to be a problem with Wuthering Heights because one of the core themes of Wuthering Heights is class. And I do not think she has a handle on that at all. But what's more concerning to me that a lot of people have not seemed to realize, because there are some people in the comments section of the trailer who are saying like, this is not a love story, because the trailer says that it's based on the greatest love story of all time. People are rightfully saying it's not a love story, and that it's a story about like generational trauma, abuse, class. All of that is correct, except all of these people are leaving out a very key factor that Wuthering Heights is about, and that is race. And now, there's a section of my previous video called Heathcliff and Race, where I discuss how Heathcliff is a man of color, and this is like not a questionable fact. It's not. No, it's not. You can't question that because it is a fact. Again, I'll do what I did then, and I'll prove it to you. 1 second. I always have a copy of Wuthering Heights nearby, even when I'm in another country. Right, so let's look. This is a very nice version that I got when I was in Haworth, actually, to visit. And it's like the William Morris, like, Heritage Collection version. It's very nice. And in this version, on page, wait a minute, on page 9 of this copy, it has, he's a dark-skinned G-word. right? We all read that. Not only that, but some people seem to still believe that when Emily Bronte wrote the words dark-skinned, they seem to still believe that Emily Bronte was talking about someone who looks like me, who has dark hair and dark eyes. Okay, sure. But if that was the case, why would they be calling him specifically racial slurs throughout this whole book? He's called a G word, he's called a Lascar, which, to be honest, I don't even know if I have had leave to say that, but that is what they refer to him as in the book, like, which is a slur specifically for people of Indian descent. Like, as I made the point in my previous video that Heathcliff is not supposed to be one race. He is an amalgamation of racial identities, like an amalgamation of racialized identities, I should say. So he is read as Romani, he is read as Indian, he is read as Black, and he is treated with like literature stereotypes that are attributed to all of those races at the time this book was written, because he is an amalgamation of these things to be presented as the foreign other. He is not a person, he is a stereotype. He is the other that was the biggest fear of this era, right? And, you know, I could clip in here my entire section about Heathcliff and race, because I genuinely do think it's important. So I do think I will do that. And we'll come back after you've watched me from the past.
So, on page 3 of Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff is described as having dark skin. Proof. The proof is in the pudding. In case any filmmaker was wondering where anyone's getting that from, they're getting it from the book. So that means Heathcliff is a man of color. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about this. And even though Heathcliff's race and ethnicity is never solidly defined in any real terms, for example, it isn't explicitly stated that he is definitely African from such and such country, or that he is definitely Romani. He is read and he is treated as non-white by every character in the book and by the author herself. And he is specifically viewed and read as Black and Romani. In his article, Images of Blackness in the Works of Charlotte and Emily Bronte, Reginald Watson discusses how Heathcliff perfectly fits the stereotype of the tragic mulatto, a word I'll only be saying once because I'm not entirely sure I have leave to say it, but I am quoting an article here, as defined by Sterling Brown in 6 points, that he is, 1, a lost, woebegone abstraction that is at times unoriginal, unrealistic, and unoriginal. 2, the fact that Emily Bronte joins many white authors who choose to focus on this image to do so without tackling serious issues and realistic character representations. For example, what this means is that Heathcliff faces racist abuse from other characters in the novel constantly, yet there is not one moment where this is deconstructed in any meaningful way or criticized, or neither is race or ethnicity like ever truly commented on as being one of the major reasons for his isolation. It's implied, but it's never directly stated. The reader has to come to that conclusion themselves, and if they don't recognize racism as being a problem, then they're not going to recognize it as being a factor for why everyone in town treats him that badly. Bronte chooses to never grapple with this. Okay, that's what that means. 3, as Watson says, according to Brown, the male version of the stereotype was usually depicted as more cunning and intelligent than his female counterpart. And you can see the juxtaposition comes in when Watson, in his article, compares Heathcliff and Charlotte Bronte's character Bertha in Jane Eyre. And 4, the character's mixed blood is directly correlated to their personality. The white blood is where the cunning and intelligence comes from, and the savagery and evil comes from the black blood. And finally, points 5 and 6, according to Watson summarizing Brown, white writers were more likely to employ stereotypes, like these kinds of stereotypes, particularly to please their mainly white audiences. What's also interesting that is a line from Sterling Brown's analysis of Cujo's Cave, an 1863 novel by American writer J.T. Trowbridge, that fits perfectly with an aspect of Heathcliff's life. In discussing the character Pomp, who, according to Brown's character summary, has been educated abroad by an indulgent master, as usual in these novels, the benefactor dies and the new master is tyrannical. This is exactly how Heathcliff's life plays out. Mr. Earnshaw, Heathcliff's benefactor who favored him and gave him a, however limited due to class issues, education, dies, and in his place, Hindley Earnshaw is abusive. All of these things are to say, within the text of the novel, Heathcliff is treated by both characters within the novel and by the author herself as racially other, specifically as black, even though characters mostly use the G slur as a pejorative towards him. This doesn't mean he isn't black, by the way, and does not mean that this is Emily Bronte's way of definitively stating what his race or ethnicity is. I will get into how Heathcliff also embodies racist, anti-Romani stereotypes as well, don't worry. But we're discussing this first. Heathcliff is written and handled by the author as other black characters have been noted to be written by Emily Bronte's white American contemporaries. Sterling Brown makes a point in saying that the first groping American novels were still tied to Mother England's leading strings. So the stereotypes that Brown describes as being employed by 18th and 19th century white American authors were not isolated in American writing, and do in fact stem from British conventions. To compound on this, remember how I said that Heathcliff was found in Liverpool and you should put a pin in that? And for those of you who skipped the summary but forgot that Heathcliff was found in Liverpool, we're going to talk about that now. So by the period between 1763 and 1776, Liverpool had surpassed both London and Bristol and became the premier slaving port in Britain. According to Maja-Lisa von Snydern in their article, Wuthering Heights and the Liverpool Slave Trade, Wuthering Heights is the site in which the problematics of an Anglo-Saxon mythology, saddled with the fact of slavery and the fact of race, are revealed if not resolved. In the novel, the Heights, corrupted by the introduction of the racially other, is the place where figures of a system of bondage work out their relationships. Snydern also posits that because Wuthering Heights takes place in a setting where time stagnates, a concept that, again, can be its own video, we are predisposed to minimize Heathcliff's racial otherness and ignore the possibility that he is a product of a thriving Liverpool slave trade. Now, obviously, it is never confirmed nor denied that Heathcliff may have been the son of a slave or even an enslaved child himself, but this is something that next to none of these adaptations even bother grappling with until the 2011 version, where it is brought up multiple times that the townspeople are aware that Heathcliff is the child that was brought from Liverpool. So that adaptation does a little bit, but none of the other ones do. And before anyone tries to be like, well, maybe Emily Bronte didn't think about it, or maybe she didn't know about slavery that much during that time, I would like to direct you to another article, Yorkshire Slavery in Wuthering Heights by Christopher Haywood. In it, Christopher Haywood argues that a widely known but long concealed phase of slavery in the history of that region, accurately reconstructed in the Bronte household through oral intermediaries, formed the basis of the story in Wuthering Heights. The family that Emily Bronte based the Earnshaws off of was the Sill family, who had deep ties with slavery, including to the point of family members owning plantations in the Caribbean and even owning slaves in Dentdale in England, as proven by an advertisement left by Edmund Sill in the newspaper, calling on help for finding a runaway slave and returning him to Dent. The family that was the basis for the Lintons, the Masons of Dent, were also entrenched in the slave trade and partially owned 2 Lancaster slave ships. As Haywood says, Numerous peculiarities in Wuthering Heights stem from the secret annals, as Charlotte termed them, of Dentdale and its major economic and social events in the period 1760 to 1807, which you will note Wuthering Heights takes place during that time period. The Bronte sisters knew these people, either via connections through marriage or through their brother Branwell, and they knew very personal details about their lives. In addition, the Bronte family would have received many newspapers, like the Leeds Intelligencer, and read things like Blackwood's Magazine, all of which actively discussed slavery. The Bronte sisters were well aware of what was going on in the world around them. The inclusion of Liverpool as part of Heathcliff's backstory is on purpose. Now, look me in the eyes. Just because Liverpool was included in Heathcliff's backstory on purpose does not mean that Emily Bronte was being in any way radical or writing anything that was anti-racist. While there is no proof that she was ever blatantly racist in her life, that doesn't mean she wasn't. And by blatantly racist in her life, I mean racist towards other real-life people. That's what I mean. That doesn't mean she wasn't. She was still very much a white woman living in the Victorian era of England who was not even one generation removed from slavery being declared illegal by the UK government, and was very much benefiting from the colonialism and imperialism of the time. And you can see that in the book, where she doesn't treat Heathcliff like a real person a lot of the time. A lot of the time he is sort of just this tragic, very unrealistic depiction of someone, you can see that. Also, to be clear, for anyone who reads Heathcliff as Romani, I'm not trying to stand here and say that you're wrong for it. He can be both Black and Romani, and I wanted to point out that his characterization falls very much in line with prominent stereotypes used solely for Black characters during this time period, because that line of analysis frequently falls by the wayside. To continue the thread about him being Romani, there is a video by TikTok creator Florian at florida.florian, who points out the anti-Romani stereotypes that are present in Wuthering Heights, which are: Heathcliff spoke a language that sounded like gibberish, as described in the book, which is how white British people frequently characterized the Anglo-Romani language, and the fact that he's portrayed as dirty, that he gambles, though this can be argued that Heathcliff was only gambling not for his own enjoyment, but for solely as means to manipulate Hindley, who was an alcoholic gambler, into losing money so he could buy Wuthering Heights, though conversely, the way that Heathcliff made his money in the 3 years he was gone is never explained, and is frequently shrouded in mystery and speculation, and is often speculated by other characters to be some sort of underhanded or shady dealings. And the fact of the matter is, he would have had to gamble a lot in order to learn how to win. And travels often. Again, this could be argued that he only ran away a few times from home when things got particularly heated, or he wanted to escape his abusive environment, or he only truly traveled during those 3 years he was gone. But this behavior is still remarked upon by other characters to be abnormal and rebellious. Separately, Heathcliff gambling, or saying that he likes to be dirty, or traveling a lot, or running away are not inherently bad. But when they all come together to characterize Heathcliff, a brown man who is often pejoratively called the G-slur and is looked at by others around him as a potential G-word brat, it paints a harmful and stereotypical picture of Romani people. It is important that both the stereotypes of Black and Romani people during this time period are mentioned. All of the racist societal stereotypes used for both Black and Romani people in real life extend to how white authors with unchecked racist biases write non-white characters. Very clearly, there is a major possibility that Emily Bronte didn't even have a specific race or ethnicity in mind for Heathcliff. He may very well have just been a nebulous brown person meant to be characterized and isolated as the other. Clearly evidenced by her amalgamation of stereotypes of both Black and Romani people, and not just sticking to one, unfortunately, as crazy as that sentence is. while failing to accurately describe where exactly Heathcliff is supposed to be from, what his race or ethnicity actually is, and her lack of deconstructing the racism that he faces. It may be very easy as non-Black and non-Romani people to feel defensive or even insulted or offended when these racist prejudices and stereotypes are brought to attention. It may feel like the people who are pointing this out to you are saying that you can't read the book and enjoy the book, or that you're a bad person for liking the book. Literally, no one is saying that. One of the best things about loving something, in my opinion, is critiquing it. In order to fully understand and appreciate a piece of work, you need to see both its strengths and its flaws. You need to grapple with the biases present within the author, or else you won't fully understand or be able to analyze the work. Additionally, racism, especially anti-Blackness and anti-Romaniism, are things that, alongside anti-Semitism and Orientalism as well, you have to acknowledge when reading and discussing all 19th century white British literature. You can't read the Brontes or Oscar Wilde or Bram Stoker or anyone else without having to grapple with these things. You can't ignore it, not when all of these white British authors were profiting directly and indirectly from all of the imperial spoils of slavery and colonialism. Obviously, as I am not a scholar in this area, nor more importantly am I Black nor Romani, I really encourage you to really read the articles and watch the videos I've cited in the description. It's really important that my voice is not the only one you engage with here. I, a white Latin, should not be the end-all be-all of how you engage with racism in Wuthering Heights. I should not be the only person you listen to about this, especially as none of the analysis presented here is my own. So, I read articles and I watched videos and I did research about this. I didn't organically come up with any of this shit in my head. You know what I mean? So please read the articles I've mentioned, and maybe even some that are mentioned within the bibliographies of these articles. And especially watch Florian's videos as well. Florian makes a lot of really informative content about deconstructing anti-Romani stereotypes and discussing different pieces of media, as well as highlighting aspects of Romani culture that are often misunderstood in media. So with all of that being said, the fact that every single filmed adaptation of Wuthering Heights, barring the 2011 movie directed by Andrea Arnold, casts Heathcliff as a white man is abhorrent. It is unacceptable.
Hey guys, so this is editing me. So while I was uploading this video, actually, I discovered that this entire clip that was supposed to go here got deleted and is not in my trash and is not anywhere to be found. So I have to say again what I was saying. Essentially what I was going to say in this section before the next one begins is that when all of these adaptations whitewash Heathcliff's role, it just becomes not only harmful because you're erasing, his entire identity at that point, but it's also ridiculous because you have, white men who are the same skin tone as me saying lines like, I wish I had, fair hair and light skin, or being told you can never wash the dark out of your skin. It's literally just ridiculous to watch. And a note about the 2011 version is that originally Andrea Arnold and her casting directors, all of the people involved in these decisions that were being made are white, by the way, as far as I can see. Andrea Arnold and the screenwriters and the casting directors all were, so we're gonna take that with a grain of salt. But I did see articles that were saying that she originally was looking for a Romani actor to play at least adult Heathcliff, but they couldn't find the quote unquote Romani community that they had spoken to. It does not say who exactly they spoke to. I assume that there are many Romani communities across England, so whichever particular one they had spoken to expressed hesitation about it and didn't want to do it. But that's to be expected when you call them by a slur in the casting notice. So I'm not entirely surprised about that. And the casting notice was then expanded to include people of Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and Middle Eastern descent, which that comes from a casting notice that was originally posted in the Yorkshire Post, but now trying to find the newspaper article that it comes from, I literally can't find it anywhere. But there are other, like Wikipedia cites it, and a couple of other articles like The Guardian and other newspapers also cite it, but I literally can't find the newspaper anywhere. But the casting notice was expanded, and then James Howson and Solomon Glave, two black men Solomon Glave was 13, but you get it. Two black men were cast for the first time as Heathcliff. So that's what I was talking about here before this next section. But yeah. Also, it could, before I finish off this part, it definitely could be determined, like it could be debated whether or not Andrea Arnold was actually successful with grappling race or not. Personally, I don't think she does enough. I talk about this a little bit later when I talk about the movie as a whole. But yeah. Okay. Now that you've seen me from the past discuss Heathcliff and race, the things that I want to emphasize. Scholars all unanimously agree that Heathcliff is a person of color. There is no doubt about this in scholarly circles. People who got their masters and PhDs in English literature all agree that Heathcliff is a person of color. This is not contested at all. It is a fact. So, what does this mean for Emerald Fennell's version of Wuthering Heights? And the casting of Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff, and the casting of Edgar Linton as a man of color? There's two answers. Emerald Fennell has not read the book. I mean, this is facts no matter what, because very clearly she has not read the book. I would gather that the most she has done is watch some of the films. I gather she most likely watched the original 1930s film, probably either the 1992 or the 2009, and that's about it. She's not read the book. Simple as. She's racist. And I do believe this. I do believe this because nowhere is it appropriate in a story that is specifically talking about racial dynamics between characters who are white and a character who is read as both Romani and Black predominantly. Nowhere is it appropriate to have colorblind casting and casting that character whose entire life is affected by race and the way that people discriminate against him for it as white. Like, that is not appropriate. That is not appropriate, and it went through so many editors, so many hands, so many producers, and still here we are. That decision was still made. And you cannot say in the year of our Lord 2025 that it's not a racist decision. I'm sorry. And like, obviously, you know, you can sit here and you can argue with me all day about whether or not Emily Bronte was successful in what she originally had to say about race. Obviously, that is a conversation that must be had because arguably she was not actually being that progressive in portraying a man of color in this way. But, you know, that's an entirely separate conversation. And I think that it is racist and also incredibly lazy for Emerald Fennell to not even try and grapple with race in this. Because, you know, if you wanted to correct, you know, because I did receive a Tumblr ask once that was saying like, oh, but like Emily Bronte, like you're defending, like Emily Bronte was racist. Like you're defending her. Why would you want a man of color depicted in this way? Isn't it just better if he's white? No, it's not. Because what you could have had was the opportunity to show that Heathcliff's anger and Heathcliff's problems were caused by the racism he faced as a child and as a young adult. You completely had that opportunity, because when you're directing a film, you control the framing, you control what the audience may or may not believe about a certain character, you control the narration, you control, you know, the scenes, the message that you want to send. You have the opportunity to make a very racially conscious version of Wuthering Heights, and it's lazy that Emerald Fennell didn't even seem to want to try, and instead went with colorblind casting a la Bridgerton to seem, I don't know, progressive, but frankly, erasing the racial identity of the main character of the book is not progressive at all, actually. And there still remains only one version of Wuthering Heights to cast Heathcliff correctly. And that version is Andrea Arnold's 2011 Wuthering Heights film. And of course, again, with that, you can argue whether or not she was successful in, you know, her commentary on race, but at least it's an attempt. It's casting Heathcliff racially correctly. It's casting him correctly in looks, and actually talks about racism and class, because those two things go hand in hand in Wuthering Heights. And it's very annoying that Emerald Fennell didn't even seem to want to try. And that's what I find the most concerning about this film, is that everyone is forgetting the racial aspect. And I do not find it to be a mistake that this is happening, because we are in an increasingly white supremacist flavored time. You know, white supremacy has been here for a very long time. It's nothing new, but we are in a very accelerated version of it right now, a very extreme. I mean, it's always been extreme, but you know what I mean. We are in a very white supremacist flavored time, and a very fascist leaning time. And I think, quite frankly, this misreading of the Gothic genre as something that is entirely separate from race and colonialism and imperialism is dangerous. And I think it's irresponsible. And I think Emerald Fennell is not a good filmmaker and is not a good director. And this movie is going to be really shit. And I am not looking forward to a lot of people thinking that this is what Wuthering Heights really is. Like, I really encourage you to read the book. I really do. I really do encourage you to read this. And please, I'm gonna leave in the description all of my scholarly articles that I have saved, that I have read about Wuthering Heights, so you can read them as well, because I want to promote learning and education. And I didn't want this to be my comeback to YouTube. I really didn't. But I had to say something, because, especially because I made my previous video, I knew people were gonna be asking me about it. And no, I will not be watching it in theaters. If I watch it at all, it will be on the high seas. I'm not giving that woman a single penny, and neither should you. Seriously, neither should you. I'm begging people to boycott this, because I just, it devastates me. As someone whose favorite book is Wuthering Heights, as someone who has seen every Wuthering Heights film ever made, it's devastating to me that my favorite book is getting treated like this. But at the end of the day, we all have the 2011 one to go back to and watch. And in the description as well, I'm gonna put my letterboxd lists of all of the Wuthering Heights films, ranked by both successfulness at retelling the story and my personal preference of which are my favorites. And please engage with this other than through Emerald Fennell's really stupid lens, please. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time in hopefully a more polished video than this. This is very rushedly filmed. I have somewhere to go in about 10 minutes, so I'm really sorry, but I just needed to get this out there like as soon as possible, because I can't stand by and let this happen.